Very well, guys. So we're gonna talk about Ori Inu, the concept of your internal head. You know, I think it's an interesting journey that we're gonna discuss this because understanding your Ori Inu will open doors for knowing yourself, and knowing more about your purpose and what are the things that you should do to let's just say remember what you came to do in this existence. So if you attended the first presentation, you learn about Ori, the personal deity, the seat of consciousness, the how we choose destiny before we came to existence. So we're gonna go a little bit deeper on Ori. So the Yoruba have a phrase which means the mystery within the mystery. And that's what Ori Inu is. It's the invisible being within the invisible, which is the self that exists beneath the self. So let's take a deep breath and, open your mind. Let's begin with this fascinating topic. So Ori is your personal Orisha, your individual deity. It's not a metaphor. It's actually Yoruba understanding of a divine force that it's dedicated to you only. So it is the seat of consciousness. It's where awareness, personality, your destiny all resides. So you choose your Ori before you come to birth, right? In heaven, we talk about Ayala Mumping. We talk about the path, all the challenges that you had to do before even coming to earth. And here's the key, Ori is the most important than any external Orisha. It's even greater than Shango, Ogun, you name it, no? So they cannot really, any of these orishas cannot bless you without the consent of your own ori. So finally, we also talk about how you can strengthen your ori by doing ebori. I did share a PDF file with you guys that I will eventually, maybe I will add some other things to enrich it, but understanding how to do this process in a simple way will help you guys later when you do any other ceremony to any other orisha. But I feel like starting to do this with your own ori will give you a very better perspective of what this culture is all about, you know? So let's move to the next slide. So I want to ask a question that it might sound strange to you guys, but how many Jews are there? Let's see if someone can answer the question. How many Jews are there? Anyone? No? Okay. Well, so the Yoruba answer for this is at least two, you know. First, we have Ori Òde, which is your external head, you know, your outer head. We talk about it, is your physical head, the skull, the brain, the face, your social personality, how you present yourself to the world, your ego, your sense of identity. It's your mask, the roles that you play. You're a parent, you're a professional, you're a friend, you're a husband, you're a wife. And everything temporary, changes with age, circumstances, and then we die, right? And this is the head that gets haircuts, smiles for photos, introduces itself to parties, thinks, right? But let's go a little bit beneath all of that, and there's another head, and that's Ori Inu, your internal head. So Ori Inu translates to inner head or internal head, and this in reality is your spiritual essence, something that doesn't change, your true self, who you are beneath all the mask, your authentic nature, before society even program you, your eternal consciousness. It's what continues even after that. And everything that you only know about yourself, and this is the head that nobody sees, but it is you. It is there, and it's deep within yourself. So I want you to think about it this way. Ori Òde is kind of like an actor on stage. It's visible, it's performing, it's playing roles, it's wearing costumes. And Ori Inu is the person beneath the costume, the real human being with their own dreams, fears, truth. And I want to talk about something here that it's kind of like heartbreaking. A lot of people, I will say even most people, spend their entire lives living from Ori Òde. They completely identify with the social mask. They never really discover Ori Inu, which is their true self. And they die without even knowing who they really were. And this is why Yoruba spiritual practice exists to reveal Ori Inu to your Ori Òde, or to your own consciousness. So that this is to show you who you truly are beneath the mask. And that's the goal of everything, guys. Rituals, initiations, consultations, ebo, medicine, all of it. That's the goal. So I want to talk about a concept called the self that dances ahead, and I think this is very beautiful. It's a mysterious Euro phrase that goes something like this: "Anything Johnny Wajueni," which translates to something that goes like this: the self that dances in front of the self. So what does this mean? I want to paint you a picture here. Imagine that you're walking through a dark forest at night and you can barely see it, but there's a path that it's unclear. But ahead of you, just very visible, there's a figure, someone moving gracefully, dancing even, and they seem to know exactly where they're going. So you follow them, you trust them, but no matter how fast you walk, you can never quite catch to them. You can catch up to them. They're always ahead of you and always dancing forward, always leading. So that dancing figure, it's your Ori Inu, your yourself, your conscious everyday self. And that's the one you're following. So your Ori Inu goes ahead of you in life. It knows where you're going before you even do. It leads you towards your destiny even when you can see it. And it dances, it means that it moves with joy, with grace, with purpose. And you can always see it clearly. It's ahead in the darkness, maybe barely visible. You might catch some glimpses, moments of clarity, but then it dances ahead of again. And here's what is very truly mystical about this concept is that even when you do reach the center of your being, even when you do discover your Ori Inu, even then there's still a deeper mystery. So this Ori Inu that is always remaining elusive, and that is the mystery within the mystery, the invisible being within the invisible. So this is kind of like why sometimes you feel I'm meant for something else. There's more to me than this. Something is calling me forward, or I know things I don't know how I know, and that is really Ori. That's the self dancing ahead of you, calling you to follow. Inviting you to discover who you truly are. So now I want to talk about the two components of Ori Inu. Just like Ori Òde has its own components, like we discussed in previous classes, Ori Inu also has two components. So because Ori Inu is not just a simple thing, it has these essential components. The first one is called Apari Inu, and I want to break down this word. Apa, it's kind of like mark or sign. Ori, we know it's head, but also it's consciousness. And is internal. So it's the mark of the inner being. It's the signature of your inner consciousness. So I want to explain a little bit more what this means. Apari Inu is your moral disposition, is your fundamental spiritual nature regarding Iwapele or character. I want you to think of Ori Inu as your spiritual DNA, and it determines how easily you grasp moral principles, your natural inclination toward good or selfishness, your capacity for developing conscious, and your baseline of ethical orientation. So, in other words, from the Yoruba point of view, Apari Inu is the moral disposition of Iwa, right? The natural character of a person that determines how easily they recognize what is right or what is wrong, and if they feel uncomfortable with what is wrong and they choose to act in alignment with truth. So now I want to talk about the second component of Ori Inu called Ori Akpere, and the translation is something like the pattern of consciousness or the destiny template. So we kind of like talk about this in the chat, but in Yoruba cosmology, everything is created by energy patterns called Odu. And Odu, I want you to think of it like a sacred blueprint. And we know there's 256 that generate all sorts of realities or experiences here on Ikolea J, or what we call Earth, right? Planet Earth. So when you choose your destiny before birth, you choose to align with a specific Odu pattern. And those patterns are actually encoded themselves in your Ori as Oriakpere, your destiny signature. So what it is, Oriakpere is your spiritual operating system or your soul's frequency. It determines which orishas naturally resonate with your own Ori, what life path feels authentic, what lessons you're here to learn, what spiritual gifts you have, what challenge you're gonna face in life, and your ewos, which are your taboos, or the spiritual and natural elements that you must respect here on your existence. So together, we have a pari inu, which is your character template, who you are ethically. And we had Oria Pere, which is your destiny template or what you're here to do. Those are the two very, very important aspects or elements of Ori Inu. And both of them are essential. They both work together. One governs your moral development while the other one governs your life path. And together, they form or complete your inner spiritual blueprint called Ori Inu. So I want to explore Apari Inu a little bit more deep, because this addresses something very profound about human nature, and here's something beautiful and important. The Yoruba believe that everyone is born with Iwarere, or innate goodness. Think about this, when you see a newborn baby, what do you see? You see purity, innocence, warmth, cuteness, something that is precious and good. You never look at a newborn baby and you're like, oh, look at this person, look at this bad person, or look at this evil person. That never really happens. So the Yoruba call this omo rere, or omoire, which is a child of good fortune. Someone who comes to the world carrying what they call the primal unity of goodness. And this is fundamental because you were born good, or everyone was born good. So what is Aparinu then? Well, Aparinu is not about being born good or bad. It's about how well you've been able to maintain this original goodness, or how much it's being covered by life challenges. So someone who has a strong Aparinu, like you can see in the slide, you manage to preserve more of the goodness you were born with. The primal unity hasn't been disturbed. You can access your original Iware easily. Your conscious remains clear and strong. And a weak Aparinu, well, it means that life experiences have disturbed chatter, or challenge your primal goodness. You know, you have layers of trauma, hurt, conditioning that had covered your innate Iwarere, and it's harder to access that original purity. And you know, your conscience has been clouded or buried deep down. So I want you to listen carefully because this changes everything. You know, a person with a weak Aparino is not a bad person, or he's not deficient or inferior, or you know, a person with weak Aparino is someone whose original goodness has been buried under pain, trauma, and really, really difficult experiences. You know, and you know, I feel like this is something that it's very revolutionary because this means that the spiritual journey in Ifa is not about learning to be good for the first time or building character you never had or becoming something you're not. You know, the spiritual journey in Ifa, it's about remembering the goodness you were born with, reconnecting with your natural Iwarere, you know, uncovering what was always there but got buried and removing the layers that cover your true nature, you know. I want to talk about a very powerful analogy here. I want you to imagine a beautiful mirror, you know, a perfectly reflected, clear, and pure mirror. And over time, you know, dust settles on it, dirt accumulates. Maybe someone throws mud at it and maybe it gets scratched, right? So a strong apparel, you know, the mirrors stay relatively clean. You know, you can still see your reflection clearly. And a weak apparino, you know, the mirror got very dirty, covering layers of grime. The reflection is obscure. But here's the crucial point, you know, the mirror itself is still perfect underneath. You know, the original goodness, your iwarere is still there. It just needs to be uncovered. And this is why the Yoruba spiritual practices includes things like ebori. We talk about this, it's cleaning and feeding of your ori, removing blockage, character training, you know, polishing the mirror, removing layers, mentorship from elders, you know, people who can see your original goodness and help you to reconnect with it. You know, rituals, initiations, cleansing, you know, washing away what doesn't belongs to you, while at the same time showing you the best way to reconnect with your inner self. And I feel like understanding this creates a very profound compassion because when you see someone struggling morally, someone who sees to lack conscience, you can now recognize that this person was born with good or with goodness, just like me, you know? Something happened that covered that goodness. They're not evil, they're wounded, you know, they're not deficient, they're just disconnected from their true self. And if you struggle with moral clarity, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person or, you know, it means you've been hurt. You know, it means that you have layers that have accumulated, and it means that you need healing and uncovering, not judgment. So this is the process of the work of developing the concept of Eriokan, which is something like a weakness of the heart or weakness of the conscious. You know, it really is the work of remembering who you truly are, reconnecting with your original nature, and removing what's covering your natural goodness. And this connects beautiful with the concept of Iponri. Iponri is your higher self that remains perfectly good in heaven. And you know, this is the third aspect of Ori cosmology. I will go even deeper in the next class. But understanding this one thing, you know, Iponri is your higher perfect self. And why is Iponri perfect? Well, it's perfect because it never lived on Earth. It stay untouched by human problems and confusion, you know. So spiritual development, it's about aligning your early consciousness, which is your Ori, your head, with your Ori Inu, which is your true self, which reconnects with your Iponri, which is your higher or perfect self, which was always there, you know, always pure, always good. So if more clarity comes naturally to you, don't be proud. You know, you just manage to keep your mirror cleaner. Use your clarity to help other people, and you know, remember that you could lose this if you stop maintaining it. And if you struggle with moral clarity, then don't despair. Your goodness still there, just bury it. Seek help to uncover it. Know that the work you do is sacred and you're recovering your true self. And this is actually healing work, not becoming good work. So the Yoruba see everyone as omorere, children of good fortune, carrying innate goodness. You were born good, life might have covered that goodness, but the spiritual path, it's about remembering and returning to what you always were. So I want to talk about the other component of Ori Òde, even more deep. So we talk about the Odu, the term of Odu or energy patterns or life patterns. I want you to think of Odu like maybe musical notes or a DNA-based pairs or sacred algorithms that generate reality. We know there are 252, 56 Odu, excuse me, and when you choose your destiny in heaven, you essentially choose to align with one specific Odu pattern. And this pattern is imprinted in your Orias, Oria Parade, your spiritual signature. It's something like a barcode that you have inside of you. So your Oria Parade determines, which Orisha you naturally resonate with. For example, Odus that start with Ogunda or any combination of Ogunda usually are very associated with Orisha Ogun and, the life pattern of overcoming obstacles and opening the path. So number two, your authentic life path. Some all do indicate leadership, destiny. Some indicate healing. Some indicate artistic expression. Some indicate warrior or active paths. Number three, it's your spiritual gifts. Some all do give prophetic abilities. Some give healing powers. Some give wisdom. Some give creative geniuses. And number four, your life lessons. Each Odu comes with specific challenges, specific growth opportunities, and patterns that will repeat until you learn them. So let's just say that your Oriapore carries, like I say, Ogunda. You might be someone that fights for justice or naturally confrontational when you see something wrong or is drawn to military activism, law, or competitive fields. You learn through struggle and conflict. That just means you're connected to Ogun, and that's how that Orisha manifests in your life and with your Ori. So your life kind of like involves battles. That's a pattern that you choose. So let's just say that your Ori is connected with Odu Oshe. That's Oshe talks about spiritual nature of Oshun, which so it's about Orisha of love, beauty, energy. So you might be someone who is uh, creates beauty. You're naturally artistic, romantic. You're drawn to art, music, counseling, fashion, design, or you learn through relationships, emotional connection, or even child care. All those things that are connected to Osha and Oshun. So that explains kind of like what there are so many people that are different. It's not a random thing. It's just your spiritual DNA. It makes you behave that way. So you came with a specific spiritual pattern, encoded in you. You're fighting against your Oriaparates, like a fish trying to live on a land, or you're always miserable. So the purpose of this culture is not to fight against your Oriaparate, but to align with it. So, most people don't know their Oriapare, they're living someone else's pattern, and the solution is Ifa initiation. Why Ifa initiation? Because it reveals your Odu. Then you can align with your life accordingly. So I want to talk why initiation in Ifa it's important, and you know why certain orishas align with your ori. Many people ask questions like, why do certain priests work naturally with a specific orisha, while others don't, or why does spiritual work flow easily for some people? The answer really is it's not a preference, talent, or personal like, the answer is resonance, determined by your Ori and revealed through Ifa with the use of Odu. I want to talk about, the principle of this resonance. So each person's Ori Inu expresses a specific spiritual pattern. The pattern is clarified through Odu, which reflects the structure and orientation of the person's Ori. So each Orisha also operates through a particular patterns of energy, function, and purpose, which are likewise expressed through Odu. So spiritual effectiveness happens only when these patterns are compatible. So applying these to Orisha and Ori, your Ori Inu clarified through your Odu expresses a particular spiritual frequency, and each Orisha also expresses a particular frequency through their own Odu pattern. So an Orisha can only work in harmony with a person when these frequencies align. So it's not about hierarchy, it's not about superiority, it's all about compatibility. So what happens when alignment is ignored? Well, when a person tries to engage deeply with an Orisha that does not match too much with their Ori pattern, the connection might feel shallow or inconsistent. Spiritual work requires constant force, or progress might feel blocked or confusion. So it's like trying to tune a radio to a station that does not broadcast in your region, kind of like that's my best analogy. So you might hear a noise, but it's not a clear signal. So why is initiation in IFA essential? Well, this is precisely why IFA divination comes with initiation. Initiation is not about choosing an Orisha you admire. It's about discovering which Orisha is in tune with your Ori. And only IFA can reveal your Odu, clarify your Ori pattern, and show which Orisha can work with you in harmony. And, just because someone whose Odu is aligned with certain orishas, that doesn't mean that other orishas can help you. As a matter of fact, many of you have done consultations, and there are orishas that we have done work with that will help you. You don't know your life pattern or your Odu life pattern yet. So just because, like I said, just because an orisha doesn't align with you doesn't mean that orisha can help you, because orishas are just manifestation of nature in your life. So Orumila is the manifestation of destiny in your life, or your own destiny. Just like Ogun is a manifestation of, it's associated with work too. So Ogun is also associated with how you or your Ori manifests while you work or in your workplace. So I want to talk about the signs of Ori Inu in your life. Your Ori Inu, it's always trying to communicate with you. So the question is, do you recognize the signals? And I want to give you six signs to watch for. So sign number one, it's persistent, quiet inner voice, not the anxious voice that worries, not the critical voice that judges, but underneath all that noise, there's a quieter, knowing voice. It doesn't shout, it doesn't argue. It's just, it just knows, this job isn't right for me, or this job isn't right for you. You need to call that person. You need to move to that city. It really has no logical explanation. You just know. It's deep down there. That is Ori Inu. The second sign is recurring dreams or visions. Some symbols appear again and again. Same scenarios. In different forms, and dreams are sometimes really real. They feel very vivid. So it's Orinu using dreams because your ego is asleep, so it cannot really interfere. So always pay attention to your dreams. Write them down. They're really messages. Number three, I call this something like synchronicities. So it's just a meaningful coincidence, that defy probability. You think of someone they call, or you need information, and a book falls off a shelf, or you're struggling with a decision, and then you overhear a conversation that answers that decision. And that is also your Ori Inu through Oriakpere pattern. It's attracting matching energies, and when you're aligned, these some synchronicities kind of like multiply. And it's a concept that it's a little bit complex, but Just think about probabilities, you know. Number four, I would like to talk about this sign. It's deep dissatisfaction despite external success. So let's say you have everything society says you want or you should want, rather. So a good job, a nice house, a loving family, but yet, you know, you feel empty, hollow, and you know, you think, you know, this isn't my life, or I'm meant to do something else. And that is your Ori Inu saying, you know, this isn't what I came here to do. The fifth sign, it's physical symptoms. You know, your body knows the truth. You know, you might have a chronic illness when you're living, you know, authentically, or sudden energy when aligned with true self. You know, you had good feelings, you know, literally in your stomach. And you know, Ori Inu communicates through the body because the body doesn't lie. So sometimes you have headaches, stomach problems, chronic pains. That might actually be Ori Inu that is screaming stop. Number sign, number six, sorry, it's intuitive knowing. You know, you just know things. You know who to trust, which path to take, what's about to happen. You know, it's not logic; it's just knowing, like I mentioned before. So that's Ori Inu accessing information from Iponri, your higher self, from beyond ordinary consciousness. And always pay attention, you know, don't dismiss randomly, you know, journal things, you know, write them down, write these signs, look for patterns, you know, what's the consistent message, or, you know, I will say seek divination, seek consultation from Ifa for major messages that you fear are going to somehow affect your life. And you know, trust them, you know, even when it feels it's illogical. You know, your Nino is constantly guiding you back through your true self or your true path. So are you listening? All right, so I want to talk about what blocks connection with Ori Inu. And let's be honest about what blocks us from our true self. You know, these aren't moral failings. They just understandable human patterns, you know, but we need to recognize them to move past them, right? So obstacle number one is social conditioning. You know, it's from childhood. Believe it or not, but our parents can be a force of obstacle for us when they be like, you know, you need to be a doctor because it's gonna pay you a lot of money, and what will people think if you become this, you know? So layer by layer, you know, these messages bury or you know until we can hear it, you know. And the worst thing that parents can do to their children is to push their dreams into their own children, or force their children to study a career or follow a path that is not meant for them. So that's something that you have to watch out for as a child, and also when you become a parent, not to impose all those conditionings, you know. Number two obstacle is trauma, you know. And when we heard we had our true self for safety, you know, if I show you who I really am, I'll be rejected, you know. So we build walls to protect us from others and sometimes from ourselves, you know. Obstacle number three, it's your ego attachment. You know, we become our achievements, you know. I am my job, or I am this degree, or I am this status, you know. So to discover your Ori Inu means letting go of these identities, you know. So it's, you know, it's terrifying. If I'm not these things, who am I, right? Obstacle number four, it's, you know, spiritual attacks. And in Yoruba understanding is it's the power of witchcraft, which called Aye. It can confuse, or Araye, which is evil people of the world, which can cloud vision, and Ayogun Oron, which are the negative celestial energies that can also block clarity. Obstacle number five. Oh, we have someone coming. Sorry. All right. Obstacle number five is neglect. You know, it's simply we never take time for silence. We are constantly working, social media, noise, distraction, entertainment. You know, Ori speaks in silence. So if you're never silent, you'll never hear your Ori Inu. Obstacle number six is fear, and this is a big one. What if my true self isn't acceptable? What if my purpose is too difficult? Or what if I disappoint everyone? So these fears are real, but living in fear of your own truth is the saddest way to live. I don't know you guys, but it's the truth. So you need to recognize these obstacles, then systematically you need to overcome them through spiritual practice, therapy, community support, initiation, meditation, consultation. All of this is going to help you, right? So I want to talk about how you can strengthen the connection with Ori Inu. So we talk about all these obstacles. Now let's talk about solutions, right? So I wrote this 8 practical methods that can help you strengthen your connection to Ori Inu. So number one, it's Ebori, ritual feeding literally strengthens the connection between your Ori Òde, which is your physical head, with your Ori Inu, which is your internal head, with Iponri, which is your higher self. So these clear blockages and it amplifies your inner voice. Number two is meditation, silence. 10 to 20 minutes a day of silence. That's literally like you're shooting down or shooting your ego. So Ori Inu can finally be heard when you do a meditation. This is why meditation is such an important practice, not just in this culture, but in many other cultures. Number three, it's Ifa consultation. Ifa divination is your, I call it spiritual GPS, right? Because, Orumila witnessed your choices before birth. He can remind you of who you are and why you choose. So I will say, like, if you always have questions about how often should I do consultation, I will say at least consult once a year, or before any major decisions, or when you feel like you're really lost. And I spoke about this before, but every abode that you do is a small type of initiation, and initiation it's a really big abode that you're gonna be doing. Number four, it's natural immersion. Removing masks. Away from people, away from social mask. Ori Inu emerges naturally, so you remember who you were before society even programmed you. Number five, creative expressions. You're bypassing your ego. Art, music, dance, writing come from deeper levels. Ori Inu speaks through creativity because ego can't control it. So you don't have to be good, you just have to create. And sometimes even writing in a book or in a notebook, you have a diary that actually helps to know yourself. And that comes to number six, journaling and dialogue, not just journaling, but you're doing dialogue with your own self. You write a questions about your true self, you sit silently, and then you write the response that comes to you. And I'll give you a couple of examples later on. And number seven, authentic relationships, mirrors, I call it mirrors because some people can actually see your Ori Inu, they accept your true self, they reflect back to you, they cultivate these relationships with you. So try to cultivate relationship with people that see your true self and they do not judge you based off your appearance, but who you truly are. Number eight, it's following joy, not pleasure. Ego pleasure equals feeling good, but it leaves you immediately, leaves you empty. And Orinu joy, it feels deeply fulfilling. So follow genuine joy. It's Orinu saying, yes, this, more of this. So I will say, pick maybe two or three of these eight methods to strengthen your connection with Orinu. Try to practice consistently. The connection is strengthens over time, kind of like exercising a muscle. That's why sports and people that are athletic or are doing sports, they constantly are bettering their skills and their muscles to be better. So also your connection with your own ori, your it's also a type of exercise, and so you're exercising the muscle of the brain. So just pick two or three of these, and then you should be better than how you started before this class. So I want to kind of like give you like a little practice that you can do. You can do it now. You can do it later on when you're alone. You can take a screenshot of this, or maybe later on when I post the video on YouTube, you can go back to it. So we're going kind of like to reveal the gap between Ori Òde and Ori Inu. So what you have to do is you need to set questions. And the first reveals kind of like your false self, and the second reveals your true self. So to reveal your Ori Òde, what do I do primarily because others expect it? What roles am I playing for acceptance? What am I afraid to stop doing? Who will I be if no one is watching? Who do I pretend to like or believe? So I want you to be brutally honest with you. This is for you, and then revealing your Ori, your true self. These are the questions that you can ask. What did I love as a child before anyone told me what to like? When those times disappears from me, or when those times feel that it happens faster. Um, Albert Einstein talked about this, about the relativity or time relativity. So when you feel like time is going fast, you're doing something and time flies. You're in the right track. What would I do if I couldn't fail? When do I feel most alive? If I could only do one thing for the rest of my life, what would that be? So I want you to let those answers come from deep inside, no, not from your thinking mind. And now here's what this reveals. Look at the answers from the first set and then look at the answers from the second set. The distance between these two sets of answers equals to the distance between who you're pretending to be and who you truly are. So let me give you some examples. Let's just say that you Ori Òde says, I am a lawyer because my parents wanted me to be or expected me to be. And you Ori Inu says, I lost track of time when I'm painting. So what's the gap? You're living as a lawyer, but you're truly an artist, right? I'll give you another example. Ori Òde might said, I'm afraid to stop earning status and money. And Ori Inu says, if I couldn't fail, I'll teach children in underserved communities. So what is the gap? Well, you're living for security when your soul wants service. So your spiritual work is to close that gap. It's not all at once. It's not impossible. It's something that has to come gradually in your life, because you're gonna start living from Ori Òde and you're gonna start living from Ori Inu, and you're going to align your outer life with your inner truth. And I know that this takes courage, because Ori Inu often want things that don't make logical sense, won't impress people. It might reduce your income, it might disappoint your family, or it will require risk and challenge, or change. So living from Ori Òde leads to depression, anxiety, emptiness, chronic dissatisfaction. Living from Ori Inu leads to peace, joy, meaning, fulfillment, aliveness. So try to do this practice, be honest to yourself, see the gap, and then start closing it, and then, be brave, one step at a time. So I want to talk about the path to Aquere, which is the path to perfection. Where is all of this leading? What is the ultimate destination? So the Yoruba call this Aquere. This is perfection, completion, liberation. This is a profound. There's a profound saying on Ifa which goes something like "Ori Loco won Lapere," which means only the self leads one to the state of perfection, or something like that. So apere is a state of complete self-realization. You know who you are fully. You have perfect character. You develop the highest Iwa. You have total alignment. Ori Inu perfectly matches with Iponri. You have liberation. You're free from the cycle of Atungwa, of reincarnation. You have peace. You're dwelling in spiritual Ileife. The Yorubas call heaven, also they call it Ileife, just like the city in Nigeria. So it's Ileife uh, on Ikoleo room. So imagine this, no more confusion about who you are. You have a character perfect, you're fully good, fully loving, fully wise. You align with your higher self. You completed all the lessons, no more suffering, you're free, no more reincarnation, unless you wish to reincarnate for humanitarian services. So according to Yoruba teaching, souls who achieve apere, they go to Ile Ife, like I mentioned, it's not the physical city, but the spiritual Ile Ife in Orun. So this is the center of invisible realm, where your ancestors dwell in perfect peace, joy, and harmony. So how long does this takes? Well, many, many lifetimes, Nobody achieves that in one incarnation except, the rarest masters of spirituality. And, think of this like getting multiple university degrees, so maybe lifetime one, you're gonna work on courage, then you die, then you're reborn. Lifetime two, you're gonna work on compassion. Lifetime three, you're gonna work on wisdom. Lifetime four, you're gonna work on humility. And only after all this reincarnation is when you complete your education, right? So when you have all the degrees, you have graduation, which is apere. So the good news is that we all doing this, right? We are already in the path. Every lesson that you learn in this lifetime is moving you closer. Every moment you choose authentic life decisions are taking that mask. And every time that you develop good character instead of choosing your ego satisfaction, you actually helping yourself to achieve this. So every time you listen to Ori Inu instead of Ori Òde, all this is progress towards apere. And don't worry about when will I achieve perfection. Just focus on this lifetime. You have just know yourself. Ori Inu, develop character, Iwa, follow your purpose. Reapere and connect with your higher self, which is Iponri. So do this and you're going to be walking the path to operate. So the journey of 1,000 lifetimes begins with one moment of self-knowledge. And this moment is now. So I want to end my presentation of Ori Inu, with this Ori key. um, we learned today, you have two heads: Ori Òde, the mass, the social self, which is temporary, the thinking; Ori Inu, the true, the eternal self, who you really are. Most people live their life from Ori Òde, and the work is to discover your Ori Inu. So you also learn that Ori Inu has two components, which is Apari Inu, your moral character template, who you are ethically at this point of your life. Oria Pere is your destiny pattern, or you Odu, which comes or is revealed to you through initiation. So together, this forms your complete inner blueprint or spiritual DNA, And three, we also talk a little bit about your higher self, Iponri, which is your perfect double in heaven, and this never incarnates, is always pure, is always waiting. So the goal is to align Ori Inu with Iponri. Um, we also talk about, the goal of all the spiritual work, reveal Ori Inu to Ori, align Ori Inu with Iponri, achieve Apere, and, the path involves practical work, silence, divination, character development, living authentic lives, helping others, So these Oriki, it speaks about your inner head. Ori Inumi, Eniti Joni Wajumi, Mashe Je, Ki, Bagbe, Eniti Moje. Iki Ode Mi She Ranshe, Fun Ori Inumi, Yeki Ori Inumi, Shatun She, Shi, Pori Mi. And pretty much is, and sorry, I forgot one more line, TTME, Jofi, the apparatus. Yeah. So this is pretty much an Oriki for uh, to connect your inner head, your outer head, Iponri in one. It's all in one phrase, and you can use this also for when you're doing Ori Bibo. You can use these when like you're having problems to find clarity in your life. So with that said, guys, that's it. Let's see, how do I stop this? Oh, I stop share. All right. So I know it was a lot of information. It was condensed. Um, I did it this way because you know there's a lot we need to cover, and I know you guys are excited about Egungun. So, but once you understand the concept of Ori, guys, everything in life is going to start making more sense. You're going to stop asking questions like, should I receive this Orisha? Should I do all this much above? Is this going to give me this? Is it going to give me that? And you're going to relax more about your life, and you're going to be like, I have my Ori, if my Ori is going to take me far, I can take my life. I can take it easy. I don't have to worry about all these initiations. I don't have to worry about all this ebo, which ebo is very important, but it's also working with yourself. So if you go to a doctor and the doctor, you have some pain in your stomach, right? And the doctor tells you you need to take this medicine, but stop eating chocolate at night, Nutella. You take the medicine, but you keep eating Nutella at night, what's going to happen? So it's the same with Ifa. You're going to go to a Babalao. The Babalao is going to tell you, these are the Ebo materials, this is your problem, these are the solutions. But you also need to stop lying. You need to stop treating people disrespectfully. You need to control your anger. You need. So it goes one with the other. So it all works for you to find your Ori Inu, in order for you to be happier in life. So if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, this is the moment.
I have a question. I always grew up hearing like the phrase that your Odisha calls you,
Mm-hmm.
like in moments in life, or like even if you don't know what your Odisha is,
Mm-hmm.
like later when you get initiated, it all becomes clear. Does
Yeah.
that fall under the Ori Apele or like the dreams and what you were talking about?
Um, the concept of Ori has not been really expanded as much as I wish, especially here in the Western world. A lot of people have been really, I will say that. Are you guys familiar with the concept of the paper tiger syndrome? Are you guys familiar with that? The paper tiger syndrome is when, especially here in diaspora, I don't mean to be offended to anyone, but that's pretty much what happens. So it's when someone tells you that you're gonna die in 8 days if you don't do this. You have to do this. You have to pay me all this money. Or if you don't pay me all this money, if you don't do this, you're gonna die. So that's the Tiger Piper syndrome. So it's creating a fake or a problem, making it bigger, and then telling you the solution. I feel like once we understand the concept of Ori better, we're going to stop worrying too much about all these Orisha callings. And yes, you might have dreams that are, like I mentioned, there are dreams that are acceptable that you're going to be having in they might be recurrent, but they do not need initiation. You don't not need initiation in order to appease an Orisha. And a lot of people could have saved a lot of money just by doing Ebo. And if you have a spiritual depth, it will command in divination. So what is my goal as an initiator, for someone who is initiating, is do not initiate because of fear. Do not initiate because of need. You need to initiate because there's something inside of you that it's making you feel that this is part of me. You need to love this. And uh, that might not be the case for some of you here, but that's the way it should be. It's unless there are some situations where like someone is he was involved in a car accident, and then there's something that needs to be done, or there are sometimes situations where like someone has to be initiated because of those scenarios. uh, my goal, my purpose is for people to actually believe first in themselves, and then once they believe in themselves, then I want to take this step to initiate myself, because I want to know about myself. I want to be better as a person, as a husband, as a wife, as a friend, as a child, in society. Then I know that the initiation is going to uplift you, but nothing comes good from fear, from lies, there's a lot of people taking advantage of this, and it's unfortunate, but that's why I'm trying to do this, and that's based on my personal experience, because we all been there. We're like, someone tried to sell us something, and then a lot of people are actually leaving this culture because they were promised things. They're thinking this is a magic lamp. You're gonna, do this. I'm gonna ask all these things. I'm gonna get all this, and in reality, you can have hundreds of initiations, but if you don't go to school and you study a career, believe me, you're gonna have to do something that is not gonna pay you a lot of money. You're gonna be struggling. So everything starts with your Ori. That's why if you want money, go and see your Ori. If you want help, go and see your Ori. If you want a spouse, go and see your Ori, because you need to prepare your Ori first in order to receive external wealth. A lot. I when I do consultation from people that are struggling because of money, my first question is, what career did you study? Oh no, I didn't study a career. I was in high school. Then I found this person. I fall in love with him, and I quit school, and then I had to go and do this and do this and do this, and you see that we go over this, but some of the most common problems that we have is because we skip certain cycles in life. So someone who is 18 years old shouldn't be thinking about marriage or having a girlfriend. Someone who's 18 years old should be thinking about starting a career. It's that simple. That's why every blessing in life has a life cycle. So if you give $1 million to someone who's 12 years old or 15 years old, what are they gonna do with it? They're not ready for that amount of money. It's gonna destroy them. So then that blessing is gonna turn into a curse or into into something bad. So it's amazing how in this culture you learn all these things, and if you follow this, and then you start believing not from need, not from fear, then it's gonna start making more sense. Yeah. Go ahead, Michael. How you doing?
Rabu boy, everybody.
Oh, boy.
First off, I want to apologize. I was off the microphone,
No
and
worries.
you know, heard some language that I normally don't say, and I want to. I'm kind of embarrassed, so I apologize to everybody.
No, no, it's fine. No worries. It's fine.
If y'all heard me, I'm sorry. Um, no, I wanted to know what once I came in, it says with your Ori, you should be thinking more about what is it that you've always wanted to do. If it's the one thing you always wanted to do, didn't get paid for it. It's kind of like the question that she had earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Reese was talking to you, because some might come across psychologically as schizophrenic. So how do you differentiate?
Hmm. Well, I mean, the mind it's really something very complex. Because the mind is something so complex, we have all these different signs to treat the mind. So if I treat the mind spiritually with Ibori, with Ebo, with ethical knowledge, but at the same time, the mind, there are psychologists and there are psychiatrists that they might approach this in a different way, but it's also helpful. So there are scenarios where an Abalau has to acknowledge that this person might need to go with an specialized doctor because it's part of something that might help. So yes, we do it both. We do it Bori, but we also send this person with someone who can help them in that area, and hopefully by joining all these spiritual science with medical science, then we come together and we help the person from different areas. So uh, it's it's acknowledgement, and every area of discipline it's also Ifa in a way. So someone who's a doctor and doing brain surgery, for me that person is a babalao as well, because he's saving lives, and that's why a babalao is supposed to do. A babalao is supposed to be someone who saves someone's life, not just physically but also from committing their own choices, you know. So it's a neurosurgeon is going to be doing brain surgery, saving that person's life. So about allow it's, about allow is a file of secrets. A doctor also holds secrets and knowledge. So that's just if I'm manifesting in a different way, you know. Hopefully that answers your question. Oh, Demi, you have a question with Demi?
No, Aporua boy, I wanted to add to the what you just said. So
Okay.
the question that he asked about Orisha speaking to you,
Uh-huh.
with the little knowledge that I have in this religion,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's nothing about Orisha speaking to you.
Yeah.
Orisha speaks through you doing consultation.
Yeah.
Maybe you may have your egbe and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
but there's I don't want to say there's something about like there's nothing like Orisha speaking to you.
Mm.
I'm not sure there's maybe your egbe, your spiritual like your celestial being in heaven,
Mm-hmm.
maybe that.
Mm.
But
Well, I
as a
think.
Yoruba person,
Mhm.
I don't think that I don't think there's something about Orisha speaking to you.
Right. I understand. And even if let's just say that it is a bay which manifests to a dream, you still need to interpret that dream through Ifa, because
Yes,
the message that you're gonna get uh, to solve that dream inquiry is gonna be exposed to you, or it's gonna be brought up to you by Ifa, by an Odu that's going to explain you exactly why. So there are people who do have uh, they have a connection with Ebe, and they Ebe reveal things to them in dreams, but then it's a matter of, okay, yes, I got these messages, but then how can I put how can I actually find out exactly what this dream means? Well, if I is there for you. So yeah, it's interesting topic, definitely. Very interesting. We'll talk more about dreams when we talk about FB. But yeah, dreams do have a subconscious message, and that's why even in psychology, there are I don't remember what's the name of this famous psychologist who spoke about dreams, but it definitely connects you with your subconsciousness and your true self in ways. Now it's matter of putting that message down and see what we're trying to say, right? You wanted to say something, Uni?
Uh, I guess maybe I think maybe just like adding on, as I think about it too, right? Like, I think sometimes it's really our Ori who's trying to find this connection to some of the things that Orisha has to offer, or like you said, kind of synchronize with these things that we need in our lives.
Hmm.
I think that yeah, I think that maybe I'm wrong, but I guess on the sense of playing it safe, I would say that I think it's really Ori trying to ask you know what I mean, to like go through divination and such, right? Like when I went through initiation, there were certain orishas, if you will, that I should, you know, um gain in my life. And I think that as I study a little bit more and learn more, I think these are just like certain things that I need
Hmm.
in my life or to become fulfilled or my
Hmm.
destiny to become fulfilled at
Right.
whenever that time comes. But not every orisha is needed for certain people, I guess,
Hmm.
right? Maybe, and again, I'm just playing it safe, but I'm thinking that
Yeah, I know that you're totally right, and we also talk about the fact that all the origins are within ourselves. Then
right.
they just manifest to nature. So the Oshun manifests with uh, beauty, love, a wife being kind to a spouse. So the origin is always manifesting in many different areas of our lives. And this is my personal opinion, and I respect everyone's opinion because I don't know everything. I'm always learning. I'm also learning like you guys, but I feel like someone who actually does origin initiation is because, and again, this is my personal opinion, is because that person's ori needs that element of nature in order to
Yeah.
achieve. So it's not that it's going to give you power. It's not that it's because you already lack something that you need. So in a way,
Yep.
let's just talk about a Alamon pin making your ori. And maybe he forgot to put a little bit of issue on your head or a little bit of this, even though your orishas are inside of you. You need a little bit more of this orisha in you. So I feel like in a way for me, orisha initiation is just okay. So these orishas are gonna help my ori to fulfill my destiny. And I'm gonna try to get a little bit of this orisha in my head, a little bit of this orisha in my head. Of course, orisha initiation is not as simple as just doing orisha initiation. It comes with um, instructions, right? It comes with instructions. So someone who initiates in orisha batala, the instructions is this person needs to eat with low salty foods. Do not yell when someone yells at you. Try to dress white because white is symbol of purity, but also try to be white inside. Do not hide evil. Do not do evil. And all these, every orisha has its own instructions that come within the bundle of receiving the orisha. And at the end, you're gonna see that orisha initiation is just you taking a norm or different norms for you to behave better ethically and have better iwa. So everything works towards Iwa, bettering yourself as a person, becoming a better person, becoming you know, trying to find that omorere, that innocent person that you were when you were 3 years old, and everything for you look that it was good, and you have all this beautiful energy as a child. So that for me, that's the point of origin initiation. And like I say in the chat, all these people that have done so many great things for humanity, they didn't need any origin initiation. They didn't even need it Ifa initiation. These people came to the world, they knew exactly what they were supposed to do. You didn't see them trying to fly when they're supposed to swim. They knew exactly. They already was there, like always in tune. They might have challenges like anyone else, but somehow they managed to succeed. And I also say this to people: if you don't want to do it, but if you don't want to do initiation, at least have good Iwa and study the concept of Iwa, good character from the Yoruba perspective. And I assure you, you you're gonna be better than if you don't apply all these concepts. So having EY is everything. That's why every tradition, every religion talks about being a better person and not doing evil and do not kill, do not steal, and do not do this. It's just that in Yoruba we have the oracle, which also happens to reveal to us things that we're not supposed to eat or things that we're not supposed to use as dress or maybe some spiritual depths. So, Olodumare is very wise and he does not have favorites. We all children of Olodumare, so we we just we are born in different cultures in different countries and we all had to make it somehow. So it's just that in this culture where we happen to have, I would say we're a little bit more close to nature than any other culture. We're worshiping nature. It's becoming, respecting Mother Earth. That Mother Earth, it's an Orisha itself that gives everything to us. Everything comes from the ground, and when we die, we're gonna give it back to the ground. So that's it. All right. Any other questions, guys? No? Nana, you have a question? Ah, you have a question. Let's see. You imprint one leg of your head, when the imprintment continues consideration. Yes. Oh, very nice. Yes, that's a great question, man. So he's asking about the meaning of a verse of Iretemei that talks about the the use of your legs as a complement. Yes, this is very interesting. So what that verse, from my perspective, it means is that you have to also be careful of the paths that you take, because remember that destiny is a road with many little shortcuts, or I will call them also entertainment. So let's say that you're walking in your destiny and there's a road, right? And you go through that road, and then at the end of the road, you find addiction. I don't know, call it whatever, cocaine, heroin. You go on that road and then you stay there. I don't know how long, right? And then somehow you manage to go back to the road of your destiny. You keep walking. There's another road, and you go to that road, and then what do you find there? Maybe someone who you like, but then that person is not the right person for you, and then you spend time there, and then time flies, and then you go back to the road, and then you almost to make it to your destiny, but then you spend so much time in this entertainment and these things that make you waste time in your life, and then you die, and then you didn't reach your destiny, or you didn't do as much good things that you were supposed to do. So that's what it means. Iretemei speaks about not only having a good ori, but also taking the right decisions, or where you're gonna go, what steps you're gonna take in your life, the things that you're not supposed to, all these shortcuts or all these dark roads that you're not supposed to take, because it's, at the end, that's why we also want longevity, and that's what Ifa gives. When you the blessing of Ifa that we all want is, what do we need in order to live longer so we can fulfill our destiny? That's why in Ifa, the most important Ire blessing is Ire Aiku, which means longevity, right? So if we live long, there are chances to fulfill destiny. But if we take the wrong path, then it's time that is going to be wasted. So that's why, for me, that's why Ireteme speaks about. And there's a story about Rumila who fell in a hole, and then there was this other person who brought it out of the hole. And Ifa, it's very it's about interpretation. So nothing is literal in Ifa, nothing, and that's the magic of, yeah, Ifa interpretation. And every Baralao has to develop that, when you are in tune with the spirit of Elah, the spirit of light, the beautiful child of Olodumare, it's spirit of light. Everything is possible because of Elah. Elah worry almost sing Ojigi Jigi Otaomi. Elah worry. We'll talk about Elah later on. But that's what Iretemei, that verse of Iretemei means, at least from my point of view. It's about not wasting or not taking the wrong steps, because your feet can take you to the wrong path. Yeah. Aboro aboya bosheshi. All right. Any other questions, guys, or comments? Nana, you have a question? No, that you always ask good questions. No?
Not today.
Okay. All right. Well, guys, it was nice to see you all. Thanks for coming again. It's nice that you guys show up for this. And then if you guys have any questions, you can ask in the chat, and I'll try to answer as best as my knowledge. I want to thank the ancestors. I want to thank the Rumales. I want to thank all of Dumare. I want to thank Orumila. I want to thank everything that's around us. I want to thank my Ori so that I can share this little knowledge with you guys. So thank you. It's all thanks to all Dumare. So bora boy. Get easy. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Baba.
Ciao.